What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the NerdBall Fantasy Football Show. I am your humble host, Pete Rogers, and I am joined by merely one of the nerds, and he is the working girl, Jordan Smith. Jordan, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Midway through October, and we're finally starting to get some solid data sets here for fantasy and what these offenses are and what these defenses are. So I think we're starting to get more settled into our week to week lineups than we were previously. At least I am. I can't speak for everyone, but
No, I think
what it
that's
feels
right.
like.
I do feel like that kind of around the week 5 mark tends to be that time period where I'm like, all right, starts and sits, I can actually offer advice because there's actually like we have 5 weeks of data in terms of how teams have performed, how different defenses cover different positions. You can start making. I just went on like a whole trade embargo. No, embargo is the literally opposite word that I want. Whole trade extravaganza in many of my leagues at the 5 week mark because I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see the trend of so-and-so player. I am not a fan. I'm going to start making moves and get people early before players start breaking out. And it was devastating. I had 2 trades on the table, Jordan, last week. Neither of them went through. Not because they were bad trades, but merely because the person who I was trading with, the 2 people I was trying to trade with, were very slow to respond. And it kills me because I was trying to trade for Leonard Fournette and Breece Hall, both of whom, of course, had massive week 4s or week 5s. And so they're not getting traded. But the thought process was there. I had the right thoughts, had the right guys. So I'll give myself a pat on the back for that one. But yes, now is the time where it feels like, okay, we're settling in. You kind of know what your team is, and maybe some moves can be made.
Yeah, you can look at your record, and then you can also just look at your points for. Are you 100, 200 points behind the first place scorer? Chances are you're not going to make up that difference this season unless you just have a disaster of an IR right now and you're expecting a ton of names back, which could very well be the case because we have a ton of like really good wide receivers who are just dinged up. They just got annoying things. They're week to week. You got like Rashad Bateman, Chris Godwin.
Michael
I'm trying to think of
Thomas.
some. Michael Thomas is another one. Just these guys who have been.
Keenan Allen still hasn't played since like week 1.
Keenan Allen, that's a major one. Is like he just has this hamstring injury, and you're like, okay, it's a hamstring injury, 2 to 3 weeks. We're on week 6 coming up, and he still hasn't played in over a month, and it's a little frustrating for him too, as people can see on Twitter,
as he has made public. All right, let's get into this week's show. We're going to talk what's your nerdgasm to start. Your favorite thing from the last week. What just had you really cooking, Jordan, from this last week of football?
We don't get to do this very often, so I'm going to just go on a celebration tour of Justin Tucker right now. Shout out to all the kickers out there. It's a thankless job in the NFL until you absolutely need them. And then it's like, holy shit, why didn't we invest more in kicker? Or like, why don't we taking this as seriously as the Baltimore Ravens, who head coach comes from special teams background? You have stories popping up of Justin Tucker taking the snap to holder deal very, very seriously. I think it was Danny Kelly who said like, or maybe it was Ben Solak. One of them said like the Ravens in the offseason, they like not partnered, but they like talked to the Navy to talk about weather. So like how it can affect their kicks. I say all this to say Justin Tucker hit yet another game-winning field goal. And when they were lining up for it, zero doubt in my mind that I was going through. Like there's like very few for certain things in football, and 97% of the time I'm like, Justin Tucker is going to make this. And apparently, if the field goal post was half yard wide, he was making that dead center, half yard wide. He was making that. Like, it was so perfect. It was better than an extra point, I think. Like, he just split the uprights perfectly. And shout out to all the fantasy kickers out there. You're kind of just placeholders, but we love you anyway.
Justin Tucker it's like the most, and I know Tom Brady still plays in the NFL, but you can't tell me that Justin Tucker is arguably the biggest lock for the Hall of Fame currently playing in the league right now, because that man is already been fitted for a gold jacket. And the other thing that I love about him is that kicking all these kicks in prime time scenarios, game winning scenarios, the man also oozes swagger. He gave us another excellent celebration of just arms wide, looking at the camera like, of course I'm going to make this. Of course I made it. What did you expect from me? And it's so much better than like if you have just some derpy little white guy who like kicks it, then he's like, yeah, I did it. Wahoo! Yeah, that's for Chris Pratt right there. And instead, Justin Tucker
That was better, honestly.
I don't know if this is the show, Jordan, but the first half of that Super Mario Bros. Trailer, totally into it. I'm on, let's ride. And then Mario gets introduced and you're like, oh, this is terrible. Why do I want to hear Chris Pratt narrate Mario? But maybe
I don't know when it comes out, but I'll catch it in a couple of years on HBO or something. I'm probably not.
Not on the top of my list of things that need to be seen.
Know that I'm not very big on. Yeah, I'm not very big on animated fare. So maybe that's just me being a snob. And to your point about Justin Tucker being a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
I can't remember who brought it up, but there was I think there was a take going around, like, is Mike Evans a first ballot Hall of Famer or something, or somebody said like he should be. But when you look into it and you dig into it, it's like there have only been a handful of first ballot Hall of Famers, and they're all really, really, really excellent players. And this isn't a rant against Mike Evans, but it's like Mike Evans hasn't been the best receiver in football, let alone a first ballot Hall of Famer. But I think Justin Tucker could and should be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yes.
Like,
yes,
give him some love here.
The man should retire and then instantly go into the Hall of Fame. My nerdgasm, what really got my juices flowing this last week, Jordan, and I know you'll appreciate this. It's the Jacoby Myers breakout, baby. We have been waiting for this, and I have known that it was going to happen, an inevitability, and we've seen pieces of it, we've seen tastes of it, and then finally last week, 111 yards and a score versus the Lions in 3 games this season that he has played. 3.11 yards per route run, which is second behind just Tyreek Hill. 1.56 fantasy points per target, which ranks among the top of wide receivers. He's the 5th best graded wide receiver per PFF. And it's glorious. It's glorious to see Jakobi Meyers emerge to be that legit elite wide receiver, going from undrafted and having it all to come together, and with a 3rd string quarterback, baby, Bailey Zappa or whatever his name is. I don't even know because I can't even watch Patriots games out here because they don't play them. But I've been loving myself some Jakobi Meyers breakout, and I've been loving him especially because in a dynasty league, I've been holding on to him, and now I'm finally reaping the rewards.
Yeah, we love Jacoby Brissett.
We also love Jacoby Brissett.
Myers. Jacoby Brissett, great guy too. But like, I feel like this is a good opportunity to talk about the just how much like a quarterback shift can change a fantasy player's outlook. Like with Bailey Zappi now as the quarterback, you'll start to see who he trusts more and who he's going to deliver balls to. And I don't know if Mac Jones was that guy for Jacoby Brissett. I haven't watched the Patriots as closely as you have, but another instance I can think of right off the top of the dome here is our guy George Pickens is also having a little bit of breakout. He's got back-to-back weeks with double-digit points and some massive target shares, and that's what you get when you switch quarterbacks sometimes. Kenny Pickett, rookie QB, I bet you they have been practicing. Like, I bet you George Pickens is his number one practice, or at least was during training camp when they were working second team together. And sometimes that's all it takes, is just having the guys that just have the rapport with each other. So yeah, even like backup quarterback situations, you can start to see like some players who have been a little bit soft soft in fantasy points, not personality wise, because we all know George Pickens got that dog in him. But a little bit of shift. Bailey Zappi, Kenny Pickett, like we saw it shift in New York, like with the Jets when they had Joe Flacco, and last year when they had Mike White, like they had like Elijah Moore. Now that Zach Wilson is back and they're running more RPO stuff, I think we're going to see him start to uptick a little bit more and get that second year breakout we've all been hoping for. So teams starting to play players they should be playing. Watch out for Desmond Ridder in 2 weeks in Atlanta after the bye. I'm seeing a lot of people being like, you know what? After the bye, they play in Cincinnati. It's time for Ridder, as a hometown kid, to start that game. And that's when we'll see Kyle Pitts come out, baby. Let's go.
There we go. That's what we want to hear, Jordan. That's what we're waiting for. Is Kyle Pitts' final emergence into an elite tight end fantasy form. Yeah, I tweeted out today. The Falcons are wearing their throwback red helmets this week. First of all,
beautiful helmets,
gorgeous, top 5 jersey in NFL history. And I'm sure one of the points, dear listeners, you're probably thinking to yourself, you're like, top 5. This sounds like a great top 5. You guys should do this top 5. Well, I'm sure we'll do this top 5 at some point. But I tweeted out, I was like, if Kyle Pitts does not put together just an all-star performance wearing this outfit, then I don't know what can help him anymore in fantasy. And I do think that you might be right. Maybe it's a quarterback change. And after the bye week, if that happens, Kyle Pitts goes from tight end, well, I don't even know, 25 to tight end 1. That'd be the greatest turnaround in NFL history.
One for the record books.
One for the record books. Indeed. All right. Well, there were some things we were excited about, and that got us very pumped up and animated from last week. Let's now talk some specifically fantasy stuff for week 6. Is that what we're in? We're in week 6. Yes, we are. Let's talk some must starts, Jordan. And I'll start us off with a guy who you already mentioned. A must start for me this week is Mike Evans against the Steelers. He's been over 70 yards receiving in all but one game this season, which puts him in the 25th percentile among wide receivers in neck rating, which is consistency and efficiency. So that all makes sense. He's one of the most consistent wide receivers in fantasy so far this season. He's the wide receiver 4 in per rating, averaging 2.06 fantasy points per target, which is some elite numbers because he's one of Tom Brady's go-to red zone targets. And the Steelers are giving up the most fantasy points to wide receivers, which is a delightful matchup, and the 4th most red zone points. Already talked about Mike Evans's proficiency in the red zone. He's a locked-in wide receiver 1 for me this week, and a guy whom I'm going to be putting in a lot of my DFS lineups because stacking with Brady, because I think that there's a real chance for both of those guys to hit big this week against a hapless Steelers secondary.
Yeah, the Steelers, since losing TJ Watt, I think they're like 0-9 without him now. Like,
amazing what happens when you lose one of your best players, or if not the best player on your team.
It's a kind of a large contingent, but it's a big win for the Packers. Should have drafted TJ Watt over Kevin King contingent. We are legion and we are many. But
bring it back to those Packers, Jordan.
I have to selfishly. I think Minkah Fitzpatrick is still going to be out, and just the way the Bills just laid the smackdown on the Steelers. The Steelers might be the worst team in the league right now. Just defensively, they're not that good. They switched to Kenny Pickett. I think there may have been a little bit of a dejected state. Just, we're going against the Bills. We have to start a rookie now just to see what he has. And are we going to win this? And no, they got punched in the mouth right away and they did not respond. Tom Brady has looked better now that he's starting to get some players back. Chris Godwin will probably play, but now he's like dealing with a hip injury, so I'm not sure like how well he's going to be performing. So Mike Evans is still going to be that guy, but it will be nice to have Godwin on the field because you at least have to account for him. But yeah, I really like this pick, and I like that stack.
Yeah,
Against the really bad defense right now. They're not playing good.
Wow, Jordan, I didn't realize you had such faith in the Carolina Panthers for not ranking them as your worst team in the NFL right now. Big Panthers fan over here. You believe in the firing of Matt Rule? You think that's all that this team needed to now revitalize and become the 30th team overall?
Look, I almost went with like starting. One of my picks for a must start was almost going to be like Robbie Anderson or something.
We love the game after coach gets fired narrative on this show.
Exactly. We saw it last year with Rich Bisaccia. Like they just come in and for whatever reason, they just win. Like yep. I feel like that's just the trend. They win. I don't know. I kind of like Carolina's defense still. They got some players that
they got some names.
Pittsburgh's better when they have all their guys on defense, but I like the way Carolina's, Brian Burns is great. They have
Jace Horn is
JC Horn. That's the name I was thinking of. But yeah.
Cool. Who's a must start for you this week?
My must start is, and largely, so we're getting into bye week season also. I want to mention that is because
good thought.
We have Detroit on a bye, probably a much needed bye. They probably need some rest to get some little injuries healed.
Talk about wide receivers who are injured. Amon-Ra St. Brown, my God, get healthy, my friend.
Yeah, we need you back.
Yes.
Houston also on a bye. Tennessee, so not necessarily juggernaut teams, but teams probably filled with guys that have been starting, whether that's with Dameon Pierce or you're digging deep and starting Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. It's just but in this case, I think you can find a reliable flex in Alec Pierce for the Indianapolis Colts. They play a pretty tough Jacksonville defense. They've been playing pretty well so far, but I kind of feel like he is Matt Ryan's one of his favorite targets, opposite of Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman's still getting a fair amount of looks, but he has not found the end zone since week 1. And Paris Campbell out-snapping Alec Pierce, to be sure. He had 92% snap share last week. Only 67 the week before, but 82, 86, 77 in the first 3 weeks. He's only averaging like 2.5 targets per game. Like he's got 4, 2, 2, 4, and 3 targets. Meanwhile, Alec Pierce is only playing last 3 games, 45% snap share, 44%, 59%. But in those, his targets are 5, 6, and 9 last week is most so far. He's starting to put up a couple double-digit point weeks. I think if he finds the end zone, you're sitting pretty good. I would start Alex Pierce in the flex if you're looking for somebody.
Yeah, I like that call. In my weekly article, which is coming out tomorrow, when I talk fantasy football volatility index, looking at neck ratings and looking at what players, who's a risky start, who's a mid-risk start, and who's a high-risk start. I have Michael Pittman as a high-risk start this week just because he's had such fluctuation in terms of his fantasy performance, and just because Matt Ryan is when you are looking back fondly on the days of Carson Wentz being your starting quarterback, that is an indictment of who you currently have under center. But Alec Pierce has been able to find success in this Colts horrific passing game. And you mentioned those target shares. Like that's nothing to be scoffed at. That's 3 weeks in a row that he's near or over 50% target share. Like that's those are numbers that you have to take seriously. And he was a guy who got a ton of buzz in camp, and now that's coming to fruition. And if we just talked about, quarterbacks finding their guy, and if he turns out to be Matt Ryan's guy, then he's certainly worth the start, especially if you're in a really deep league. And you mentioned Nick Westbrook-Akine. I've had to start him on a few occasions this season already, because in one of my leagues, and so Alec Pierce is a very much preferable start to a complete flyer shoot in the dark, because of that target share and already proficient involvement in the offense that we've seen.
We just need like Mo Alley Cox and Jelani Woods to stop stealing all the touchdowns.
Yes. Let's spread the targets around, the red zone targets around, please, and thank you.
We don't need any 2 catches for 3 yards and a touchdown out of these tight ends.
The Travis Kelce special, the 7 catches for 25 yards and 4 touchdowns. That was
just
a truly
somebody covered them so our wide receivers can be open.
Yeah. You would think that a defense would cover the biggest guy on the field once you get, especially Mo Alley Cox. So another must start, my other must start for this week is Rhamondre Stevenson versus the Browns, going back to that Patriots because, I can't quit the Patriots. You have waded through, if you've held on to Rhamondre Stevenson so far this year, you've waded through the storm of Damian Harris, Ty Montgomery, what was perceived as a crowded backfield, James White, and now it's just Rhamondre. It's all his backfield to operate with and thrive with and do what he wants with it. And what he wanted to do with it last week was 175 yards against the Lions, and he gets another cupcake matchup this week against the Browns. 3rd most fantasy points to running backs. They rank 29th in run defense per our own NEF ratings. Only 2 top 24 backs this year, Jordan, this is a little fun fact for you, have a sub 11% touchdown dependency. Joe Mixon and Rhamondre Stevenson, which means positive regression is coming, especially against a Browns team giving up the most red zone fantasy points to running backs. Rhamondre scoring a touchdown. Rhamondre's going for over 100 yards. He's a locked in RB1 this week. I'm all in on Rhamondre Stevenson.
I'm trying to look. To see when's the last time. No, I'm trying to look. Actually, I'm trying to help your vibe.
Yes.
By looking up to see when was the last time Brian Belichick lost to the Cleveland Browns.
It was never.
I don't think he's ever lost.
Can we look this? Can we see what Pro Ref has to say? Bill Belichick.
But anyway,
splits, baby.
Belichick keeps receipts. He doesn't forget. Like, he may not seem like the type of guy who cares about what other teams are doing or what they think of him, but he was let go by the Browns, and I don't think that's something that he has ever forgotten. And I think he tries a little bit harder on games like these. Like just a smidge harder. He's looking
pull out
to
maybe 1 or 2 more plays that you saved that in the tank, especially to get the win against the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, he's got the back of the playbook. There's like 4 pages. He's got like a couple plays on those pages for like the Browns. He's got a couple listed out for the Giants and maybe some for some other division opponents, but he definitely likes to go into his bag in games like these. And starting Rhamondre Stevenson against a team that has been really awful against running backs is a pretty solid place to go here. So yeah, if you are starting Jacoby Myers, Bailey Zappi, and Rhamondre Stevenson, just let all 3 ride. Just let it go.
Stacking the Patriots offense against the Browns. Man, that is an indictment on the Browns' defense, because this Patriots offense has not looked great so far this season. But now that Bailey Zappa,
I think I'm just irrationally anti-Browns right now. So maybe that feeds into it a little bit, but
there's nothing wrong with being that. That being said, Jacoby Brissett currently carrying one of my fantasy teams because I decided to not draft quarterbacks, and guess what? I got boned because of it. Well, I drafted Trey Lance. I put all of my quarterback stock in Trey Lance, and now I'm been tossed to the waiver wire. And Jacoby Brissett is my savior as I spin out to sea lost. He is the beacon that calls me back to shore. Thank you, Jacoby.
He hasn't been as bad as he was in Miami, so that's a good thing.
So that's a win. That's a win. What can we say? Do you have any more must starts, Jordan, before we move on?
Yeah, I just have another possible streaming flex option.
This
And
is what Jordan brings to you. You, the listener, you're like, I don't have these guys. I can't start them. Well, Jordan is here to provide you names that you can get, you can start, and you can succeed with. Man of the people, Jordan Smith.
it's all about winning on the margins. I'm going with Devin Duvernay, wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens. As if Rashad Bateman doesn't play, probably the clear one in Baltimore. He's definitely not a wide receiver one on the depth chart, on anyone's depth chart, but he is a solid wide receiver 2, 3 mold. Right now, he is 93% owned in sleeper league, so I don't know if you're going to be able to pick him up right now, but he's only 39% start. So I think a few more people should be looking to put him in the starting lineup this week. Rashad Bateman might play, but he has a foot thing, so I'm not sure if he is actually going to step onto the field or how much if he does. Right now, Duvernay is the number 17 wide receiver in standard scoring in 24 in PPR. He provides you last week they ran a few rushing attempts with him. We got to get him on the all quad team as well, like right up there with Mike Davis and AJ Dillon. Just like the dude is thick.
Saquon himself.
Yeah, and Saquon Bark, like Devin Duvernay is just a thick guy. So I think he could have a little bit more upside this week. He also provides you with that return ability. So if he's
already got a touchdown fielding on that today or this week or this season,
it's a long shot. It's a stretch, but like I said at the top, Baltimore loves their special teams and they pay attention to it. So there's always that possibility. It's a small one, but it's a possibility that he gets you a return touchdown as well. And yeah, if you dynasty leagues, if you have multiple flex positions and you're looking for someone to fill the void, or just in your regular redraft league, I think he could be that wide receiver 3 for you.
I like it. He has consistently throughout this season been at the top of per rankings for wide receivers. Right now, he's wide receiver 3 in per, 2.47 fantasy points per target. Like he has just consistently he hasn't been highly targeted. He's a 13% target share so far this season. But when he gets targets, they are high value, high leverage targets. Like he is getting you touchdowns. He is getting you big yards. Like anytime he gets looked at, it's for a big play. And if he's about to see more targets, because he's going to be the wide receiver 1, presumably with Rashad Bateman out, it's the beauty of, 2.46 fantasy points per target, Jordan. If he sees 6 targets, boom, you're talking 12 plus points right there. It's easy math.
I absolutely love the players that are like near the tops of efficiency rating, but not quite there on the overall positional ratings. I'm like, they're going to get there. It's going to start to even out a little bit more, and you're going to have a better player because of it.
Amen. All right, there's some must starts for you for week 6 fantasy football. And before we go, it's time to do a top 5. And this is a top 5 that Jordan thought of and then passed it off to me because he didn't want to come up with his top 5s. But that's okay. I rose to the challenge. In the spirit of autumn and fall, and just the absolute garbage Thursday night games that we're getting, including this week's Bears versus Commanders, which will surely be a 10-6 slugfest. This week's top 5 is top 5 things you'd rather do than watch Thursday night football. Let's start off with number 5. Number 5 thing you'd rather do than watch fantasy Thursday night football is spend the weekend with your friends in a cabin in the woods, only to find out that it's an ancient sacrificial site, and there's a whole bunch of different ways for you and your friends to die, and you have unknowingly picked death by Fuzzy Tuttle's The Tickle Bear. That's number 5.
Is this something that you that has happened to you before?
I have died many times by Fuzzy Tuttle's The Tickle Bear. It is a less than pleasurable death. Let me be the first to tell you. Number 4. thing I'd rather do than watch Thursday Night Football. Hilariously tweet, quote, check your children's candy this year. I just found insert struggling player in fantasy football inside my child's Snickers. Trust me, I'll get like 5 likes. You'll be the hit of Twitter for that day. It's perfect content for the Halloween season.
Oh no, I found who's super struggling right now. I mean, I don't want to go with the same low-hanging fruit Kyle Pitts.
I know.
But let's go with the whole Green Bay Packers team right now, because I wouldn't want to find them in my Halloween bag now either.
Let's say though, you talk about analytics, advanced stats and efficiency, and a player about to meet in the middle and be a good fantasy player. Let me talk to you about a certain man called Alan Lazard, who's currently the #1 wide receiver in NEC rating. He's consistent. He's efficient. He's averaging 1.88 points per target, which puts him in the top 10. Alan Lazard, baby. Alan Lazard.
People forget before he got hurt last year. The year before that, he was really high on the like DVOA rankings. I think he was like 17th. Like he was toying around with top 20 territory. So I'm not surprised that Alan Lazard is doing that.
Number 3. I had to figure out what fingers to hold up. Number 3 thing to rather do than watch Thursday Night Football. Get lost in a corn maze for upwards of 3 hours because you wanted to see if you could do it, quote, Zoolander style and never turn left.
You're just going to get lost in there like Jerry Gergich looking for a little Sebastian.
And then have to eat your way out because that's the only way to escape a corn maze.
You got a lot of corn for survival.
But man, your corn rate is sky high. You're going to be super efficient in your corn consumption. Number 2, the second most thing I'd rather be doing than watch Thursday Night Football is be the one house on the block that forgot to buy candy on Halloween and have to watch all night as the children in your neighborhood excitedly walk up to your door, knock, wait, realize there's no candy to be had here, have their hopes and dreams crushed, turn, and sadly walk away. And you have to witness this. I'd rather watch that than the Commanders play the Chicago Bears on Thursday night.
We haven't even really talked about how we're getting Carson Wentz versus Justin Fields and Ron Rivera.
Does anyone want to talk about it? Do we need to talk about this? Oh, we can talk about Ron Rivera being like, what's the difference between your team and everyone else in the NFC East? Quarterback. Awesome, Ron.
Love when a coach has to clarify his answer to a question in a press conference.
His one-word answer. That's the best. I gave you a one-word answer, but let me clarify because you might not have understood what my one-word answer was.
I'm getting big like Hagrid from Harry Potter vibes where he just blurts it out and he's like, I should not have said that. Should not have said that. And then he'll backtrack and be like, well, it's quarterback's the most important position, and just a whole bunch of platitudes that are, we know what you meant. We know there's a reason the Colts and the Eagles gave up on Carson Wentz. Now he's looked okay in spots, but they'll be looking to draft one of those guys coming in next year, I think.
One of what guys, Jordan? One of the possible top 3 dynasty quarterbacks for 2023 that you just wrote your rankings on that you can go check out on nerdballff.com. Jordan's called plugging your work. It's perfect.
Could be a shift coming in those rankings.
Ooh.
CJ Stroud has looked good. Yeah. He is the Heisman leader right now. And that, I don't know, when you start to see guys like Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray struggle, those guys are the ones I feel like comp more appropriately to Bryce Young, who is, like 6'2", he can scoot a little. But CJ Stroud is just puts it anywhere on the field, 6'4", just a big quarterback who is proving that it's not the talent of the wide receivers in Ohio State. That does help, but it's not just that. It's that he's a pretty good prospect right now.
It's not the, damn it, I was trying to bust out the Hercules quote, but the strength of their heart. What is it? It's not the size of, I don't remember. You'd think I would know these things. Damn it. That would have been a great quote. All right, let's wrap up the top 5 with the number one thing you'd rather do than watch Thursday Night Football, Jordan. This is for you. This is the thing that I know you would rather do than watch Thursday Night Football. I wrote these for you. Number 1, go to a haunted hayride with your niece and nephew thinking you'll be totally fine until you realize the brownie that you bought off some teenager because you were so starving you just had to eat was actually a weed brownie. And now the very fake skeleton hanging at the end of the tractor trailer is telling you exactly how you're going to die, and you have to keep it together because they're children presents. That is the number one thing Jordan would rather do than watch Thursday Night Football.
That sounds like an excellent surprise. Would hope that somebody, you were there with like a responsible adult as well. Like, I don't know if you went there with a significant other and the nieces, or whoever you're related to that has entrusted you with these kids, because big bummer if you accidentally ingest a weed brownie. And
big bummer if you are in charge of young children and you are high as a kite.
Yes, but see, this is why I hand off the top 5, because my top 5 would have been just like, go to a pumpkin patch, go to a winery, check out this movie. It's like, yeah, that's a lot of stuff that you probably can't do at 7:00 at night when the football game is on. Like, don't go to a pumpkin patch when it's 40 degrees out.
Jordan's word of advice.
Dark.
This is his cautionary tale. Don't go to a pumpkin patch at 8 p.m. On a random Thursday night. Probably won't end well for all parties involved.
Do all of Pete's haunted activities instead.
Do those. You'll have a much better time than watching the Washington Commanders take on the Chicago Bears Thursday Night Football. Just A+ content, NFL. Thank you for that. All right, that's all we got for you this week. Make sure you rate and subscribe to the podcast on your podcast platform of choice, and go follow us on Twitter at NerdBallFF. You can follow myself at Pete M. Rogers and follow Jordan at Jordan_Smith27. And of course, make sure you're checking out all the amazing content we're putting out over on the site at nerdballff.com. I've got my volatility index coming out tomorrow. Jordan has just dropped, he dropped last week his rankings for all positions in Dynasty, and then he just dropped yesterday his top 7 running backs for 2023 Dynasty rookies. So make sure you go check that out. And of course, as always, until next week, my fellow nerds,